Right now, we are about to be joined by the most dangerous ethnic group in America, white podcast bros. These two guys have played a major role in shaping how millions of people understand politics, from Obama staffers to co-founding one of the most influential political podcasts out there, Pod Save America. These guys are smart, thoughtful, handsome, vaccinated, and they're genuinely trying to make politics more honest and nuanced, which is refreshing. It's good to see some other people out there doing that besides us. Finally, right? Okay.
Oh,
please give a warm, flagrant welcome. We call him Johnny Favs and TV Tommy. You guys can call him, you probably already know him, as John Favreau and Tommy V.
Original podcast bros.
What's up, bros?
We're reclaiming it. We're reclaiming bros. How's it going, guys?
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you indulging me yesterday. I hit up Tommy and John yesterday. It was a bit of a media storm that happened after some criticisms that I had over Trump. And I had up John, and I was like, John, like, am I off on this? Like, what is the best way to handle, like, somebody that I voted for that is not living up to their promises? I'm criticizing them. And some responses are, well, yeah, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like, I don't know if that's the best way to build a coalition. What do you think? What do you think about that, John?
No, that shit drives me nuts, because I think, first of all, Trump lies a lot. He's always lied a lot. And it also assumes that every single person in America was supposed to be paying attention to, like, every single word that Donald Trump has ever said.
Right.
And which they're not. But then aside from all that, like you said, if you want to persuade people to join your coalition, which is how you actually win elections, then when someone says, oh, I'm disappointed in the person I voted for, you say, well, welcome. Welcome to our side.
Yeah.
That's the smart thing.
Is what the right
unless
do.
you want to just be right on the internet, which a lot of people just do. So
Yeah.
Oops. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. It is. I don't know what it says about me, but when they were like, fuck you, maybe I have mommy issues or something, I was like, I kind of like this. Like, I think I'm going back to the Dems, guys. No, what were you saying, Tommy?
No, it just drives me crazy. I mean, I'm, like, on the right, how dare you not say what the dear leader says? Like, that doesn't track for me. And then on the left, like, Democrats, we just need to understand that saying ha 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 and scolding people and, telling them that I was right and you were wrong, that's so, no, everyone hates you when you do that, right? Like, whether it's in life, whether it's in your house or a political party. So we just gotta welcome people. And we also have to say to them, okay, what could Democrats do that would earn back your vote?
Because it looks like, and again, my assumption is the administration thinks that the Epstein thing is just an internet issue. I'm really curious what you guys think, what the administration is thinking right now. Because for them to so flippantly, like, throw it away after campaigning so hard, to me indicates that they're going, this is on Twitter, this is on Instagram, it's not going to sway any of the voters. It feels like it's a little bigger than that. What do you think?
I think it's a lot bigger than that. I mean, I think Akash nailed it on the last episode. There's sort of two options here.
Yeah.
Either these guys were lying all along, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all these influencers, and were cynically using Epstein's abuse of what DOJ now says was 1,000 kids to advance their political agenda, or they're covering something up. And so I could understand good arguments for each side, but we do know that Bill O'Reilly recently said that he talked to Trump in March, and he said, well, there's a lot of, like, good people who are in the Epstein files who are associated with him who didn't do anything sexually, was the suggestion, and he didn't want to put their names out there because that's unfair guilt by association. So there's just, like, a lot of smoke here that suggests there's something happening.
I think that they know it's a big deal in the administration, but there's just not a lot of good options for them right now because they clearly don't want to put out more information. Right? So they either don't want to put out more information or there's no more information to put out. And either option leads to what Tommy was just saying, that either they lied to us all along and we're exploiting this issue, or that they're covering something up. And so all they can do is move on, tell people to shut the fuck up and get back on board, all the MAGA influencers and everyone else, and hope that there's, just wait for the news cycle to move on. Well, but, like, I don't think that's going to work because, conspiracies or questions based on scandals that are all you have to do is say, like, are they covering something up? Is there more info? Like, that goes on forever. You know, like there's no stopping that.
Yeah. And to your point, and addressing what Tommy said earlier of there's a lot of names that would just be there, would be guilt by association. I'm going to be honest, if you are hanging out with a person who's convicted of pedophilia in 2008, you are guilty by association.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if anybody in this room was a convicted pedophile, I'm not hanging out with them anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you.
I'm not staying at your fucking brownstone on the Upper East Side. Like,
I can pay for my own plane ticket.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw the clip that's going around now of this Fox interview that Trump did in 2004, last summer.
I just saw whatever clip you sent to me.
He's doing this interview with Fox, and what we all saw on television is Rachel Campos Duffy, who's the Fox host, former Real World contestant, married to the transportation secretary now, Sean Duffy. She asked Trump about declassifying the Epstein files, and what everyone saw was Trump saying, yeah, I would. But turns out they edited the video, and the rest of his answer was played like much later on Will Kane's radio show. And his full answer was, well, yeah, that one's a little more complicated than the Kennedy files or January 6th, because, you know, you don't want to tarnish people's reputation if they're just mentioned, you know, a few times here and there that doesn't have to do with anything else. So that was last year that Trump said that. And then they just decided to edit it out, which I've been reliably told by Trump is a huge election hoax for a media outlet to edit an answer like that. So I'm sure a settlement with Fox will be forthcoming. But we'll see.
Do you think his base is going to just let this go?
No, I don't. I think there's kind of like a couple categories of people. Like, I think there are some folks who genuinely kind of fold into like the QAnon set of beliefs where they believe sincerely that there's kind of a cabal of evil, mostly Democrats, who are child abusers who run the world. Like, there's people who sincerely hold those views. There's also people who are just like, what, you know, like you said you would do this. Like Pam Bondi in February promised us that she was reviewing the files. None of this makes sense. And now you're just insulting us. Yes. And I think like what's interesting about this scandal is it's like the Megyn Kelly types, like traditional Fox Republicans are mad. The Tucker Carlsons of the world are mad. And then Alex Jones is really mad. It's like it runs the gamut.
How do you guys handle when... I mean, I imagine you guys feel very comfortable being critical of your own party. Are you delicate about it? Do you feel like you have to be even more critical? Are you ever concerned that like you guys have so much influence that your critiques could sway voters away? Like, how do you hold your own party accountable? Is basically what I'm asking.
I mean, you know, about a year ago, after the debate between Biden and Trump, we sort of immediately after the debate said that it was fucking awful and that Biden should seriously think about whether he needs to stay in the race. And, you know, we weren't too popular for a while. But like in that sense, look, there are some times where Democrats fuck up, and like I agree with what they're trying to do, like the underlying policy behind it, right? And so when it's just about execution or like fucking something up here and there, then I'm more like, well, I agree with the goal. I agree with the policy outcome here. So I don't want to be like, I don't want to just be shitting on everything. But with something like the Biden debate performance, I was like, look, he either drops out of the race and we give ourselves a chance to beat Donald Trump, or we have Donald Trump as president again, which I didn't want. So, like, of course I'm going to criticize Biden.
How do you feel about the lack of primary? Sorry.
I mean, for a re-election, it's kind of standard. But look, I mean, I struggle with this one a little bit, right? Like, obviously, after the debate, it was self-evident that he was not up for a re-election or 4 more years. And saying as much was just like, it was stating what was obvious. What I struggle with was, to be honest with you, like before Biden ran in 2020, I felt like he was too old to be running at that point. I felt like I kind of, you know, we're pretty critical of his campaign in Iowa and New Hampshire when he took like 4th and 5th place. And then he won South Carolina, won the nomination, and won the presidency. And I was like, you know what? maybe I'm just a fucking idiot and I don't know anything about politics and I'm wrong. And so then when he decides to run again in 2022, I was like, this doesn't feel right. All the data is telling us he's too old, but like clearly he had made the decision at that point. And so I was like, I don't know. Well, if I had to vote for one over the other, I would have ended up voting for Joe Biden because I agree with him on the issues. But now I think about it in hindsight and I was like, you know what, maybe I should have just been louder then. Like, I don't think they would have cared. They didn't give us an interview for 4 years because we were critical in that 2020 primary and they held a grudge. Oh yeah, they hated us.
They're not happy. I think on the primary issue, like I kind of blame the other Democrats who could have run but didn't, like people haven't taught. Yeah, like look, you could. I mean, I get that when it's an incumbent president, it's rare to have a primary challenge in a presidential. It's also even rarer for that primary challenge to succeed. And if you run against Joe Biden and he ends up being the nominee and wins the presidency, the party's not going to look at you kindly. So I get the calculation that goes into that, but ultimately, if Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer or Pete or any of those folks decided to primary Biden, they could have done it and they chose not to. And they made a calculation about why that wasn't good for their careers or why they wouldn't be successful. And that's fine. But they could have done it.
And I like Pete, but I assume you were working with Biden for 4 years and you probably saw the cognitive decline well before that debate. And you still chose not to primary him, which is a little disappointing, I guess.
You make an interesting point about if you support the underlying policy that you're trying to implement, even if you fail in the implementation, the idea behind it is right. And I think that that's an issue for Trump right now, where he has a lot of people that are concerned or disillusioned because a lot of the things that he was promising weren't really policies. Like releasing the Epstein file isn't a policy. Ending foreign wars isn't a policy. Right? I guess reducing government spending, there are ways that you would attempt to do it, but maybe it didn't happen. But some of these things are promises that are very difficult in execution. It's almost like I don't really begrudge Trump not being able to convince Putin in one phone call to be I'll just give Ukraine back the Donbass region. This is hard geopolitical diplomatic shit. And, so maybe there is a version of over-promising and under-delivering, which no politician has ever done in history. But I just wonder what a base does there, and then how can Democrats that feel like they actually can serve that base, not just bring over voters that are pissed, because I don't think those are real. That's a real coalition. But actually, how can you serve these people? Because it feels like the Dem party right now is a little bit fractured. There's this new guard that's kind of rebellious and exciting, and it's gaining a lot of steam, and then it feels like the old guard is trying to do whatever they can to kind of consolidate power. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I mean, look, the leadership of the party is really old. We have a real gerontocracy party in the real gerontocracy problem within the Democratic Party. I think the stat is the last 8 politicians to die in office were Democrats. Yeah. Right. So that's not good.
Cool record. Cool record.
We look, the two of us sitting here, we worked for Obama. We could tell you a lot about people feeling like you
bring back Obama, man. Can we just convince him to come back? Everybody loved him, even though they didn't. They did.
But at the time, there were a lot of people who were very disappointed by him. They felt like he ran on being anti-war, right? And he ran on ending the war in Iraq, but he sent more troops to Afghanistan. There were a lot of drone strikes. There were a lot of controversial counterterrorism policies. There was Libya, Syria, a million things, right? That people were understandably mad about. And I have a lot of sympathy for people who govern, because campaigning is a lot easier than governing. Governing's fucking hard. There's events that happen. You don't control them. The Arab Spring happens and it just changed everything we did for 2 years in the Obama administration, and Benghazi happened, right? So there's just cascading events. I do think though, Trump is in a real, Trump has just flip-flopped on so many things. I mean, you guys talked about this. It was not just Epstein, it was the Iran strikes. I mean, today it sounds like he's going to send weapons to Ukraine again. So there's a lot of things roiling the base here.
And even with Israel specifically, it looked like he was taking a hard line with Bibi, and then I don't know if it was his ego, he just couldn't let that mission that was so successful that they did go on without feeling like he was somewhat in control of it. I just don't understand the impulse. But it seemed like he gave away so much diplomatic currency by saying, I was actually negotiating with them, but I was with Israel the whole time. It's well, now anybody else you negotiate, what do you think they're thinking? They're wondering if they're going to get their fucking window blown open, right?
Yep.
I think with Trump is he doesn't necessarily have an ideology. He has a bit. And the bit is he identifies something that people are pissed about.
Yes.
He tells them who's at fault for it. He then says, all right, I'm going to fix it. He tries to do something to fix it that may or may not work. And then he just claims victory anyway and hopes to move on to the next thing. And he doesn't really think about like the long-term consequences of what he promises or what he says, because he's just trying to win the news cycle, right? Like he's just trying to get to the next day because that's how he thinks. He's a TV guy.
How can we get Democrats to do that more?
Well, I mean, like
That shit feels good, guys.
It does feel good. It does feel good. But then you get fucked when you actually get into office, and that's just what's happening with Trump now. You know, he makes promises to like two different groups of people, promises that are like opposed to each other. You can't possibly do both of them. And then, you know, you get into office and now you're fucked. Like end the war in Ukraine in a day, or like I'm not going to add to the deficit, but I'm also going to extend tax cuts for like the richest Americans. Like you can't do both those things.
I mean, you can do the last thing you said, and we'll just look the other way. But listen, we're doing all right. It's a nice podcast, dude. Everything's fine. But yeah, the first thing is horrible. Okay, the first thing is disgusting. Yes.
I mean, I do think Democrats can learn from Trump. He understands the sort of new attention economy. He understands the internet. Like we should try to do the things he does and emulate those. Like going to McDonald's was a genius move, and serving people food, right?
Yeah.
It just was. But I didn't answer your question about what the Democratic Party should do. Like we have to provide an alternative that is better. Right. And I want it to be anti-war. Like what if when you authorize military force, you have to vote on it every year? It needs to be it sunsets after 12 months.
Great idea.
Or else, right? Or what about we should be for working people? We should lower taxes. We should have better schools. There should be make childcare affordable. We need a broad reform agenda that is not just about Washington. There's that part. It's like, don't take lobbyist money, but also no congressional stock trading, lifetime ban on these fucking congressmen becoming lobbyists. Yeah. And then there does have to be something about this gerontocracy issue, because like I really do think we need some sort of term limits for congressional committee chairs or something that allows fresh blood to circulate up so those people end up running.
Yeah, if you can't hold your head up, like Schumer's head is coming out of the middle of his chest. So I feel like if you don't have like the neck strength to hold your head up straight, then we got to yank you out of politics immediately, right?
Yeah, you can't be like doing a video where you're like hunched over in your chair yelling about Trump tacoing, you know, like that's not that's gonna fucking break through really well. But I do think like, and you guys have talked about this too, like Trump has these ideas that are just, they're policy ideas in theory, but they're also just easy to understand. So it's like build the wall. Oh yeah, I get building the wall. And you guys talked about Mamdani, right? Like everyone who just paid attention to that race, even a little bit, you know that, you know, he wants to freeze the rent and wants free city buses, right? Like those are just easy things to understand. And I think sometimes Democrats, when we come up with our policy agenda, it's like a 10-point plan and it involves fucking refundable tax credits and no one knows what the hell that is. And you just got to make the policy ideas both bold and simple to understand, accessible for people. And then you actually got to have a plan to make it, to pass it, right? Like you can't just promise a bunch of shit and then not be able to do it.
It doesn't matter how well-intentioned your idea is or how helpful it is if you cannot communicate it to us in a way that is digestible and enticing. You know, freeze rent is I don't even rent, and I'm like, can I freeze my mortgage? Like, I want everything frozen, right? Like, Now, the question I have for you guys is, you've seen like the rise of Mamdani, obviously in New York, and pushing certain policies, and you talk to different people about how easily they will be executed. You know, I have some guys, you know, friends of mine who are in real estate, obviously biased, but they'll say certain things like the downstream effects of this are going to put us in the same position we are right now. I'm sure you've heard of like the ghost apartment situation in New York, which is downstream from these like rent freezes. I think there was like a 2019 law passed that said that once you were rent stabilized, you couldn't ever move away from that. So then these landlords just never renovated the apartments, and now they're just sitting there vacant, et cetera. Of this like rise in the Democratic Socialist side of the party, like how effectively do you think they will be able to administer some of these changes? Or do you think some of this is kind of similar to Trump in that like it sounds really great, but it won't be able to be implemented, and then the people will be kind of frustrated?
Yeah, my biggest worry about Mamdani is that he's not going to be able to deliver on the big promises he's made. And because I think part of it is not because of him, just because of the job itself. Like, he's going to have to get approval from Albany on
taxes,
raising a bunch of taxes and stuff like that. And so if you don't have that, then you have problems. The housing issue, like where I am on this, is rent freezing does sound great. Ultimately, you're not going to solve the housing problem without building more housing. And I think like more housing, more supply is probably a more important thing to get done than just freezing rent, because you freeze rent of people who are already in there and then they don't leave. And the real challenge is, what about people who don't have a place to live, who can't afford to even rent an apartment, who can't afford to buy a house? Right. So you actually just need to build a lot more housing. Now, what I like about Mamdani is, I think, having listened to him a bunch of times, like, I think he's more reasonable than his critics suggest, and he's more like willing to compromise with people and like find ways to get stuff done. And I do think he knows that he's going to be judged on whether he actually improves affordability in New York. So like, does he get the rent control thing done? Does he get the Free City Bus done? We don't know. But can he point to a whole bunch of things he's done after a couple of years in office and say, well, look, affordability, people can afford to live in New York now, or at least they can afford to live in New York a little bit more than they could, and I delivered on that promise. So I do think that like delivering on the promises I worry about that for him more than I worry about, he's going to become some radical leftist who destroys the city.
What if he delivers on none of the promises but agrees to go to Israel 3 times in the first year?
God, I cannot believe this election has become about that. I mean, I would also say
crazy, right?
It's so fucking stupid. I mean, I talking to his folks, like, I don't think they think the general election is a done deal. The numbers get complicated.
It's not.
Look at the polling. He's at like 40% in the polling. There's Eric Adams running, that Cuomo is going to run. There's this Republican guy, and like, he's got some work to do. Like, older African-American voters in particular, I think kind of like normie Jewish voters, normie Democrats in Manhattan. I think he's got some challenges. And I think you can solve that through politics, through conversations, like going to a ton of synagogues, meeting people, talking to them. Because, Andrew, I remember what you said about kind of the awakening you had about anti-Semitism after October 7th.
Yeah.
And just, well, just that like, my wife's Jewish, like, we have had a lot of similar conversations, and just that feeling of like seeing people celebrating a horrific massacre of innocent people.
Horrible. Horrible.
And how shocking that was, and how frightening, that led people to feel unsafe. And those feelings have not gone away for a lot of people.
Right.
At the same time, I think the war in Gaza has become this humanitarian catastrophe.
Abomination.
Abomination.
It's just
morally, strategically, everything.
Awful.
Right. So 2 things can be true, but I do think he's going to have to talk to these folks who sort of had feelings like you did, and say, like, look, you know what? Upon reflection, I realized that globalized Intifada hits a certain way for you, and is hurtful. And I'm sorry, and like, that's not something that's okay.
And he's gonna have to figure out a way to localize the Intifada.
All politics is local.
I think it's halal goes back to $8. Does that count as localized Intifada? I think you make a great point, and like, I mean, it is just so tricky, because I'm not even Jewish. Everybody thinks I'm Jewish, so I get all the anti-Semitism. Right? So like, it's real.
None of the benefits.
I don't get any of the IQ. I don't get any of the hedge fund access. I just get the anti-Semitism, So it's like, so it is out there. It is 100% real. And I think that there's obviously tons of people who are anti-Semitic. I think there's also tons of people who like really feel for what's happening in Gaza. And then they conflate like believing Israel should exist with believing you should just keep bombing Gaza. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to even like separate that issue. Like, we're all sitting here right now and we're just going like, hey, this has been going on for 2 years. It's rubble. There are kids dying. There are adults dying. Like, it's not just kids. It's like everybody's fucking dying. So that needs to stop. You could think that, but also be like, I don't think that we should fucking attack Jews in the street. Like, there's videos of people just chasing around Hasidic Jews. Is it funny? Yeah, but it's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's not funny. But yeah, there has to be a space. There has to be a space.
I need to see the video before I decide if it's funny or not.
That's
out.
No, there has to be a space for the conversation, and we can't just immediately throw around anti-Semitism whenever people disagree about an independent nations policy that we are actually supporting, right? So
Yes.
yeah, what do you think the best way to handle that is? Do you guys get criticism when you take a hard line on that? Like, what is?
Oh, the head of the ADL called me an anti-Semite in a New York Post op-ed like a week ago.
For saying what?
Because I said that Bibi Netanyahu had dragged the United States into war with Iran. I said Trump got forced.
He got duped.
Right?
He got duped.
I mean, right. Netanyahu started a war, and he knew that to blow up the Fordo facility, he needed the U.S. to do it for him. So I'm not sure, like, that just seems like a statement of fact. He decided, this guy Jonathan Greenblatt decided that was anti-Semitic. And what upsets me about that is it is weaponizing a very serious problem, which is anti-Semitism in this country, to try to silence your political opponents. And it makes me viscerally angry because my daughter goes to a Jewish preschool, and when I drop her off, I go through like 6-7 layers of security guards, guys with guns, right? Like, I understand on a personal level, like, where this fear comes from in the Jewish community. The suggestion that me criticizing Trump or Bibi's Iran policy makes me an anti-Semite makes me so angry that, like, I want to lash out about it, right? And so
it also
numbs
people to the word, and it's not a word we should be numb to.
Yes.
And people should be able to figure out the difference between, like, criticizing a government and criticizing a policy and criticizing people's religion and their ethnicity. I mean, even like when, it always bothers us when you criticize Trump and then Trump and some MAGA people try to be like, oh, you're anti-American. You hate America if you criticize me. It's like, no, I fucking love America. I just don't like you running it, Like, that is this. I mean, it's similar to the criticism of Israel. Like, I think the Israeli government's making a horrible mistake. I think it's been a fucking catastrophe. But also, like, people have to have, I also think, principles that are universal. So it's not hard to say, like, yes, the killing of innocent civilians, men, women, and children is horrific, no matter who does it. Treating people differently because of what they believe, whether they're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever, is wrong. It's just, like, wrong across the board. And you should just be able to, like, if you're going to have a principle that and feel that strongly about it, it just has to be universal and has to be across the board.
There's a sentiment, I think that's, like, beautifully said. And I think that's what most people actually feel. And I think what often happens is when you throw around these pejoratives, like when you call everything anti-Semitism, when it's really not, it's like a criticism of government. You'll keep talking about it, right? Because you guys have a platform. You also, like, maybe will deal with the slander or whatever it is. Most people won't. Most people got a regular job and they're like, I don't want that label. And then they just be quiet. And then what it does is it forces the conversation to the extremes, who are the people that don't care if you call them anti-Semites because they're like, yeah, I'm an anti-Semite. They just say it blatantly. So now Nick Fuentes is the one controlling the conversation on something that should be a lot more nuanced, probably. So I wonder why Greenblatt doesn't see this. I mean, he's got to be aware of what the downstream effects of using that word far too much are.
I think there is a belief that you can silence critics and police their speech. And I think conversations around Israel-Palestine have been some of the most policed conversations and policies in Washington for a very long time. And, like, someone like me or John or Ben Rhodes, a guy I do a foreign policy podcast with, like, we would be excommunicated from that city if we ever tried to get, like, a Senate-confirmed job again because of comments like this. And a lot of, like, kind of careerist strivers in Washington see that, they clock it, and they kind of, play within the 40-yard lines. And I think that's a huge problem because it leads to policy blind spots.
I think that is a big optics problem for Democrats, in that I think there's a certain underlying moral superiority within the Democratic Party, that we are the morally superior party. But then we see you be very silent on these atrocities, not you guys, but, like, these institutional Democrats. And I think a lot of moderate people are very put off by, you're telling me you're so morally superior, but you're clearly for sale and have an agenda. And that makes me very put off by this entire party.
Well, and this goes back to when Andrew got criticized for this is what you voted for, which is it's this feeling that, like, obviously Trump is bad. Obviously his policies are bad. Everyone should know that. Everyone should know that he's a racist, horrible, whatever. And if you don't, then fuck you. Then you deserve what you get. And, like, that might be satisfying to certain people personally, but it's not going to move the ball forward. And, like, we got to think, like, what's our ultimate goal here? Is our ultimate goal to just be, like, right on the internet?
It's selfish.
Or is the goal to, like, pass policies that we deeply believe in that are going to improve people's lives? Because if that's the goal, then we're going to need to have a bigger coalition than a bunch of like white liberals.
Yeah, I've
which is
never.
basically what we're down to.
It's just so selfish, and it's just like it's clicks, views, attention, pats on the back, but it gets you nowhere. There's no like, what about the midterms? What about the election?
Yeah, I mean, in that same conversation where you're like criticizing Trump, you're also tacitly encouraging the DSA. And like, if you're someone that is a fan of Mamdani, they see someone like you, like encouraging, like, you know, Democrat socialists, like, why would they not jump all over that and say, finally, okay, we got this guy on our side. Like he's coming around to what we believe in our agenda, and instead letting their ego get in the way. It's just like such terrible policy.
I've never seen.
I don't know. I feel like there are people that grift all over the place, right? But like it is the equal and opposite grift. Like there's the Trump grift for sure. Everything Trump does is right, and you go along with everything he does, and he's playing 4D chess and all this. And then there's the everything Trump does is wrong grift, and you get the same views, but it's not real. Right? You satisfy that like primal urge in people. And I understand people are frustrated. I get it. That's totally fine. Like I'll meet you where you are emotionally 100%. But I don't like this claim that they're actually trying to like make the world a better place and they actually care about where this goes. It's like if your video gets 5,000 views, I promise you'll never mention it again. And if it gets 1 million, you'll talk about it nonstop for the next 2 months. Like, let's just be honest about what it is. Everybody's clocking each other's shit, and they're just writing the exact same headline. I saw it happen over the last 2 days. It's like none of you guys care about building anything.
That's where the Epstein stuff came from, I think, because a lot of people like Bongino and Kash Patel kind of started talking about it, and it built and built and built, and it got them a following.
I think Bondi too. I think Bondi got caught up in like. I think she kind of wanted a moment. She's like, I'm trying to build myself a larger career here. She has bigger aspirations. She's like, it's on my desk, without really understanding what she meant with it's on my desk.
Totally.
But
and she brought in those influencers and gave them the binders.
The fuck is that about?
So stupid.
To tie it back to what you guys are saying, and I'm harping on this with you because you have such a powerful voice within Democrats. But like in my lifetime, I've never seen a political party as obsessed with excluding people. And the irony is Democrats seem to love talking about inclusivity ad nauseum. Inclusivity. But if somebody steps out of line from what we want them to say, fuck you forever. You have no chance of redemption.
How do Dems fix that?
Well, one thing, I mean, look, I think there was a huge problem among Democrats that was particularly a few years ago about not having conversations with people we disagree with. Like I got invited to go on a Barstool show. I said, no, I don't think I can do that, man, because like my audience would get upset about some things Portnoy said. And I think back to that and I'm embarrassed and I'm mad at myself because like, how am I going to speak to that Barstool audience if I don't go on those shows? Right. So that was fucking stupid. I'm embarrassed about it. And we're course correcting. I think a lot of Democrats are doing similar course corrections. You saw it when like Bernie endorsed, Rogan endorsed Bernie, and Bernie put out a press release about it, and he got attacked by a lot of Democrats about it. So I think we're learning from those mistakes. I do think there has to be, I do think we're kind of a more motley coalition of diverse voices than the Republicans are right now. Like, I guess I would just push back a little bit on the idea. Democrats can be annoying, we can be scoldy, but I think sometimes like it's online mobs more than the party, you know?
I was going to say, like, I actually think Democratic politicians in general have been good about this and have only gotten better, especially since the election. But I think what people experience when you're paying attention to the news or you're following politics is the influencers, the people online. And look, Trump, as we're seeing with the Epstein files, Trump just doing everything, that just letting the base drive him wherever he wants to get, and over-promising, like that's going to get him into trouble. And I think that the challenge for Democratic leaders and Democratic politicians is to push back on shit like that when people aren't being inclusive and people don't want to build a big tent. I remember like Sarah McBride, a first trans member of Congress, when Mike Johnson and Nancy Mace tried to do that bathroom bill to like prevent her from using a bathroom. And, she responded by being like, well, I'm going to follow the rules, but I didn't come here to argue about these issues, and I'm going to try to make people's lives in Delaware a lot better. And a lot of like online activists in the trans community just like attacked her and still attack her to this day. And it's like, this is the first trans member of Congress. And like, imagine sort of the burden on her shoulders. And what she's trying to do is say, you know what? Sometimes we need to be more inclusive. Sometimes we need to focus on, she's not picking the fight. And so it's like, why are you criticizing her for that? Because like that fight might make you feel good, but what she's trying to figure out is both how to make sure there are more trans members of Congress, and also, even more importantly, how to make sure that she delivers on the promises she made to the people who put her into office in the first place.
There was, when Pete came on the pod, he told this great story about like, I think he like first started dating his now husband or something like that. And there was this woman like worked in his office, and she was like a, I think maybe a little more conservative religious woman. Right. And she said something to him like, I met your friend and he was very polite, or he's very nice or something. And he met her where she was emotionally. He knew that for her to say that, it was a much bigger leap than the average person that would just be like, I'm so proud and you're so brave and all this other like, yes, queen shit. Like he was able to recognize what that meant for her. I thought that was like very emotionally intelligent, right? He could go, what do you mean, my friend? He could scold her. And I think to what Akash is saying is like that sentiment, and maybe it is online. Like, I think the sentiment is like Republicans, it's like, you could fucking shoot someone in the head, but if you're like, listen, I believe in small businesses, they go, all right, he's a good guy. Yeah. And then with Democrats, it's like, I believe in trans rights, gay rights, black rights, but Asians shouldn't go to Harvard. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? It just, all it takes is one thing. And then online, at least the rhetoric is you're scolded and you're out.
Well, you're right. Like Trump saw a political opportunity by welcoming RFK Jr. into the fold, and all of a sudden there's a prominent Democrat named Kennedy who's a cabinet secretary. So he's been a genius on that front, for sure. And Democrats, you're right. Sometimes we have like a laundry list of things, and you don't check all the boxes. We don't allow you in the tent. I do think the solution here is getting back to Obama era politics. Like he was actually brilliant about this and emotionally intelligent about this because he understood. That he just like tried to connect with people on a human level, and he understood that people would misstep and that people had different views about race or abortion rights or things, or maybe said things that offended him, but that if he could connect to them or make them think that he was going to help their lives, he could get their votes. And it was, I think that's the right approach.
Okay.
Do you think that still works though? Because we see the way Trump handles things, and clearly he appeals to a lot of people, and he doesn't give much grace at all.
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, I think part of the challenge today too is the sort of information environment, and like all of the incentives to our earlier conversation about the attention economy just pull you in the direction of simplicity, of yelling about things, of being like really strident, making everything black and white. And it's, you hear, when you hear like Pete on your podcast, or I just, listen to Gavin Newsom for 4 hours on Sean Ryan's podcast, like you hear in a space like that, you get all the complexities and the nuance, and you'll hear politicians, you'd be like, oh, I didn't like this guy or this girl when I like saw them on TV, but now like, they're a little more complex than I thought. But television, social media, like it doesn't allow for that. And so I think it's easier for Trump because Trump's message is, well, I'm just going to burn everything down because you're all pissed and I get it. And so I'm just going to tear the whole system down. And that's like an easy message to get across. And the Democratic message is, look, we have to work together with this very fractious coalition and this like very diverse country to sort of build something together that's going to be better for people. And that's like, people are fucking bored already just hearing that sentence.
Yeah, we're the earnest fucking losers. It sucks. Like we're this normie Democrat space where like, actually, we think government can be good. And the reason I don't think there's a ton of conspiracies is because mostly people are incompetent and they can't keep secret. It's like boring, lame answers like that. And it's like, the burn it down stuff is fun.
There's I know you guys got to go in a few minutes, but two things. One, Vitor, I know that you're a Kenyon college graduate. My dad went to Kenyon.
No way.
Wow.
And his a good friend and I believe roommate at part of time there was a guy named Paul Kluge. Did you take any of Kluge's classes? No.
I know the name. I absolutely know the name.
Kind of a legend over there, so I thought maybe you might take it, but all good.
Small world.
And then separately from that, who is, I know we have like a couple minutes here, so who do you guys think that you would like to see?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, who would you like to see run at this point right now? Who do you think has the juice, and who you think could execute the plan and bring some people maybe that the Democratic Party lost back over?
And you can give a couple of names.
It killed Yahya Sinwar.
I'm going to be very honest because I've now been through a couple cycles where I've, regretted listing off a bunch of names that didn't go too well. Like, there's no one right now that I think is going to be like a winning presidential candidate. That does not mean that all the people mentioned that are often mentioned can't like grow into becoming an excellent candidate and ultimately an excellent president. Like, that's what campaigns are for. And a lot of people grow during a campaign. But right now, I just think it's tough. And there's a lot of Democrats out there who they look like they're always like just reading the stage directions. Here's what we're supposed to say, and here's the right message that'll work. And I want more of these candidates to, sit down on shows like yours, or like, here's my advice to them. Like, when something in the news happens, when there's a development, before you look online, before you watch TV, before you ask your staff about it, just like stop and think about how you feel about it. Like, what is your genuine reaction to what just happened? Write it down and then start there. And if you need to massage the language and this or that because your advisor tell you, that's fine. But at least start with what you believe in your gut. And I feel like because Trump has won twice now, and we've been through a decade of this, people have just stopped trusting their instincts, which I get is understandable. But I think people at least need to go back to trusting their instincts, because you could be wrong, but that's much better than just bullshitting your way through it, which people can tell immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the two things that I think I'm in a similar place. Like, there's no one there's no one who I would quit this job for right now and go work on their campaign. There's no one getting the heart going. I do feel like it's more likely to be someone from outside of Washington, because even after Trump, I still think there is just such a high distrust in institutions and the establishment, and just frustration with the status quo. And by the way, you're seeing that like everywhere. Yep. It's not just the United States. Like in Germany, they just had an election, and among young, you track this, the AfD, like young men went to the AfD and young women went to the far left parties, and they all said, fuck you to the establishment.
Wow. In Spain right now, you're seeing the exact same conversation about immigration that we're having right here.
Yep.
You're seeing it all over the place.
Sorry, may I ask why AOC wouldn't necessarily captivate you guys? I'm not even being critical. I'm just curious.
Look, she does captivate me. I think she's like one of the best messengers in the party. I think she's genuine, authentic. I think that because she has had many years in the public eye, opinions about her from people who don't pay close attention to politics are still pretty polarized. Yep. Like, she's got the curse and the blessing of almost 100% name ID, which means that a lot of people have formed opinions of her. Now, can she turn those opinions around to like win purple states in a general election? I don't know, maybe, but I think that it's tough. It's tougher, but like, who knows? She at least, she's at least genuine and very inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mention her just because like I don't think she's going to run, but I do think she would scratch a lot of like important criteria. One is just social media fluency, like knows how to communicate with people in 2025, and it can't just be like ads on Jeopardy or whatever. And also just authenticity. Like the fact that she was a bartender, sometimes Republicans make fun of her for that. That is like the best part about her. Like she's a human being. She had a job where she worked with her fucking hands. Like when Obama was elected, he and Michelle had just paid off their student loans. They lived in a little condo. Like they were normal people, or like the closest thing to normal you could be when you get elected president. And I think it's got to be someone like that feels connected, because in 2016, voters were telling us like, we're sick of the establishment, we're sick of Washington, and we were like, hey, here's Hillary Clinton, a person you've known about for 30, 40 years,
who's had a lot of people killed.
Not Epstein yet.
Yes. Okay. Before you go, because I know you got to go. You guys both worked intimately with Obama. Big Obama fans over here. Can you give us an Obama story?
Oh, an Obama story.
Just a fun little Obama story. Anything.
I'm trying to think of a good.
Can I
We can cut
funny.
it if you don't want. If you don't want.
Can you just cut this guy's name?
Yes.
So a good
the
buddy
name you
of
just
mine.
said, by the way. The name, Got it. That is cut from the record. Okay.
A good friend of ours was in the car with I think it was then Senator Obama, and it was like two younger guys and him. And he's like, "So who are you guys dating?" He asked the first guy, and then this other friend of ours was in the back, and he's like, "So like." Person, who are you dating? And our friend goes, I'm gay. And he's like, yeah, you got game. You got game. And he's like, no, I'm gay. And he kept like, yeah, you got game. Like, no, sir, I'm saying that I'm gay. And he's like, oh, well, there's lots of cute guys in the. So fucking funny.
I love that Obama was just so happy and accepting that there is clearly for a moment someone with severe autism in the back of his car working on the campaign just going, I got game. Anyway, boys, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you guys. I wish you the
Thanks for
best of
having
luck.
us.
And we got to get you in studio when you're in New York.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
for having us.
so much.
Thank you.